The World with Richard Engel and Yalda Hakim is a brand new podcast from Sky News. With me, Sky News' lead world news presenter, Yalda Hakim.
And me, Richard Engel, chief foreign correspondent for NBC News.
Every week, we'll be reporting from the front line of the world's trouble spots and asking the big questions to the world's most important and influential people.
Join us for the ground truth to help you understand what is happening in the world today and why it matters to you.
So that's The World with Richard Engel and Yalda Hakim.
Listen every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Sky News Daily. Niall Paterson in the chair. Great to have you with us. Now, I know that given the state of the Middle East right now, the easiest thing to do would be to ignore, to put our fingers in our ears, to close our eyes and hope it's all sorted itself out by the time we open them. But we can't, and frankly, we shouldn't. So much is happening. The invasion of Lebanon, the assault on Gaza, the Iranian missile attack on Israel, and the Israeli response, which is absolutely going to follow. To ignore is to fail to understand. So today, we're going to focus on some eyewitness reporting and on-the-ground analysis from our teams in the region. And to be clear, there will be discussion of injuries that some of you may find upsetting. Later, our defence editor, who watched the missiles fly literally over her head. She'll be taking us through the options for an Israeli counterstrike. But first, our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, inside southern Lebanon. She's in the old city of Tyre, situated right on the coast. And Alex, look, of course, as mentioned, the real benefit of you being there is that you can tell us firsthand what is happening. And given the scale of the conflict, there are going to be plenty of casualties. So tell me about the hospital you visited.
Well, the hospital has come under a number of attacks just in the past few days. There's been 3 on its outskirts, one within 100 metres or so of its emergency department entrance. It was so close that rocks were thrown against the door and they couldn't actually open the door. People inside who'd been admitted as the war wounded, who already sustained injuries from earlier bomb strikes, were re-injured. So there's a lot of fear inside that hospital. They feel, and I spoke to several doctors who all said that they were very scared. Half the staff have already left, either to look after their families, take them to a place that they consider safety. One of the doctors said, when I was treating a child, the child said to me, "Where can we go that's safe?" And he felt he couldn't answer her.
Half the staff have left already, Alex. I mean, is this a functional hospital?
The Lebanese government Ministry of Health did set in train some months ago emergency planning just for this scenario. And they identified a number of different hospitals, this being one of them, which would act as frontline hospitals. So they cleared out all patients who were not to do with the current war. Right now, they're very much feeling like that nowhere is safe, because if the doctors are feeling under attack, as one of the key surgeons told me, he's aghast that half the staff have left, and he's saying, doctors and nurses should not leave in wartime. If they're here in peacetime, they should stay in wartime. And one of his most memorable quotes to me was, "A soldier does not leave the battle. Doctors and nurses cannot leave the hospital." He feels this is very much a tactic that he's seen replayed out before in previous wars that he's worked through just in Lebanon, 3 other previous wars, but also further afield in Gaza, where there is a tactic to try and displace the population, particularly make key workers like medics and doctors leave. And once they leave, as the doctor said to me himself, if we go, there's no sustainable life, so everyone will leave.
From the way you're describing this hospital, Alex, it almost sounds like it has been turned into, a de facto accident and emergency unit, or indeed a military hospital close to the front line. What sort of injuries are they dealing with?
They're dealing with quite horrendous injuries. A woman lying on a table as her leg is cut off. It's half blown off anyway. There is no time for anaesthetic, so she had no anaesthetic because they were just trying to stem the bleeding and stitch her up and get her into a more stable position. He was showing me heads that were half blown off that he was trying to patch together. Children who were screaming with fractured legs and hips. I mean, a bloody catalogue, like a scene from a horror movie.
How are the medics coping with the volume of work and indeed the injuries that they're clearly going to have to be dealing with?
Yeah, I think initially they seemed overwhelmed, and that's why they were having to deal with patients without anaesthetic. Where they were flooded with patients, and if they waited for things like that, she would have died. The younger doctors are not coping well, it seems to me. They spoke about being very angry and very scared and very frightened, not just for themselves, but for their families. They're now living in the hospital for the past 9-10 days. The older surgeon who I spoke to, who's lived through 3 wars, and this is his 4th, said this is by far the worst. And I said, what, even compared to 2006 when you had 34 days of war? He said, far worse, casualties far higher, and this is going to go on much longer.
The casualties being higher compared to the war that went on in 2006, I'm just wondering why that might be. Is there, as they say in military terms, more kinetic activity? Is there just more violence in a short space of time leading to these injuries and, of course, the deaths as well?
The key reason for why the casualties are so much higher is because of the airstrikes, multiple airstrikes. We went to one just yesterday, not 15 minutes away from where I'm sitting, where they had dropped a bomb on, one presumes the target was this Hezbollah man who was living right in the centre of conurbation, small, very higgledy-piggledy, packed-together houses, all one on top of each other. No one knows what he was doing or what role he had. He was in the house with his family, his wife and children. All 8 of them died. But perhaps more significantly, that impact destroyed a whole load of other houses. It was a big bomb. It totally collapsed the one right next to it, which had 5 different families in it, unconnected to Hezbollah, as well as a whole range around it. I mean, and these houses aren't just slightly, a couple of tiles off, a couple of windows blown out. They're leveled. Absolutely leveled. The Israelis say that they are targeting Hezbollah military infrastructure and Hezbollah people and Hezbollah commanders, and now they've spread it to Palestinian members of Fatah, for instance, in Beirut. But the impact is far more widespread, and that's leading to these ever increasing cries of it that they are indiscriminate, causing chaos.
The Israelis described this as a limited operation, and I suppose what you're seeing on the ground leads us to reflect on exactly what definition of limited is in these circumstances.
We've seen a lot of terror in Israel from rockets coming in and the Iron Dome kicking into action and preventing that coming down. Imagine not having an Iron Dome, which is what this country doesn't have. It has no Iron Dome. It has no air defences. Nothing to stop multiple breaches of its airspace. The Lebanese government has kept on saying and keeps on saying that this is an infringement of their sovereignty, of Lebanon's sovereignty. The Israelis are flying drones over Lebanon. They're flying jets over Lebanon, causing sonic booms, which I don't think quite encapsulate just how terrifying those sonic booms are. They are massive, big thunderclaps that sound like a bomb and create a lot of terror.
But what then is the relationship between the people that you are talking to and Hezbollah? It is incredibly, almost impossible to understand how people can be living side by side with a group which, various Western governments have prescribed as terrorist.
But that's looking at it through very, very Western eyes and a Western approach to it. I mean, let's look at Hezbollah. Yes, it is hated and reviled by certain parts of the population, but it is an extremely powerful group, powerful militarily, stronger than the Lebanese army. It's also got a very influential and effective social welfare program. It runs hospitals, schools, clinics. It hands out aid. None of which a lot of Lebanese people feel the actual government is capable of doing. The economy is absolutely on its knees with inflation of about 100% running. Most people are out of work, as 80% of the population is considered to be below the poverty line. There are some rich people here, but there's a whole shed load of very, very poor people who are desperate.
There is this perception from those of us who are not on the ground that when Israel is showing overwhelming force, when there is a ground invasion going on, and when its stated purpose is to find and hunt down Hezbollah, that the ordinary Lebanese would look at what is happening, look at Hezbollah and think, do you know what, we could do without you? That is too simplistic an analysis then.
No, I think that is a reflection of what some people think. I mean, before we moved down here from Beirut, and I was rushing around on one of the nights when Beirut was being attacked, and the rumours were that there was an Israeli ground invasion, some of the workers in the hotel saw me and stopped and said, is it happening? Is it happening? And I said, yeah, it looks like it. And then they said, good, I hope they get rid of Hezbollah. There's no doubt there are a lot of people who don't like their control, don't like their influence. But I'm not sure anyone likes what Israel is doing by bombing lots and lots of places.
And I suppose, Alex, that this is the sort of nuance, the sort of insight that you, and of course you're travelling with a team, can only get when you have boots on the ground, so to speak. And that was an opportunity denied to you, let's not forget, in terms of Gaza.
Well, listen, we knew what was happening in Gaza because we had our own people on the ground. But when you're not there, when you do not have your feet on the ground and the team's feet are on the ground and you're all looking and listening and talking and watching, and you can say with 100% certainty, but now we are here. And we can say 100% certainty what's happening. So when someone says, no, we're not targeting hospitals, no, we're not targeting civil defense people, no, we're not hitting areas that aren't controlled by Hezbollah, or we are hitting homes because every single home in Lebanon has got a rocket or a missile in its kitchen or garage, which the Israeli Prime Minister actually told the United Nations. I can say with a 100% certainty that is inaccurate. It is not true, because I've spoken to many people in Lebanon who do not only hate Hezbollah, but would never ever countenance living near them or having anything representing Hezbollah around them.
Alex, thank you. We are back in a moment with our defence and security editor on the Israel-Lebanon border. Stay where you are. Welcome back to the Sky News Daily, continuing to focus on events in the Middle East. And now we're going to just cast our mind just slightly forward as to what might well be the response from the Israelis. Joining us from the Israel-Lebanon border, our defence and security editor, Deborah Haynes. Even before we get into that, you were there when Iran launched that attack on Israel. You saw that attack coming in. Just explain what it feels like.
We're close to the Lebanese border, but we're also close to the border with Syria. Clearly, this area would not be an obvious target. However, by chance, it was really effectively in the flight path. And so what it meant was that when we had the alert that went out that Iran had started the attack and that the ballistic missiles were coming towards Israel, everyone knew that it'd be a matter of minutes, like about 12 minutes, until they would actually start hitting their targets. So we all rushed outside and we started seeing the intercepts above us, high up in the sky. I mean, you couldn't hear them. You could just see the explosion and the blast flaring out. And then they were the ones directly overhead. That obviously we saw some getting through. Clearly they were directed towards central Israel, places like Tel Aviv. It might sound very bizarre, but it felt fairly safe where we were, just because the air raid siren wasn't going off. And then there was a lull, and then there was a second wave, and the same thing happened again. And then when it stopped, suddenly then the air raid siren around our area went off, and we could hear the sound of an incoming rocket. And it seemed like it was a Hezbollah rocket, probably fired from Lebanon, which then landed near us, but we obviously had to run for shelter when that happened.
And of course, Deborah, we're still waiting for a fuller, independent analysis of the damage or lack thereof that it caused. But it certainly seems that Israel was largely protected by that air defence system that you were just talking about. And certainly listeners who want more on that should go to yesterday's podcast, and we spoke at length to Professor Michael Clark. But the question now is, what does Israel do? Because a response is coming. And I'd submit, if Israel were to respond in kind, the best part of 200 ballistic missiles, the effect on Iran would be far, far more significant because of their lack of a sophisticated air defence system on the scale that Israel possesses.
Yeah, it's interesting to sort of compare the two countries. Like Israel, it's much smaller geographically, and so that makes it easier to defend. But clearly, if you manage to penetrate air defences with enough missiles, you're going to inflict huge damage in a much smaller area. For Iran, it's a vast country in terms of size, and its actual air defence capabilities are nowhere near on the level of sophistication as Israel's. They have been investing in their air defence systems, but Iran is known to have invested very, very heavily in its ballistic missile arsenal. It has huge numbers of them. We know from recent reporting it clearly thinks it's got enough to be able to give a load to the Russians for their war in Ukraine. For Israel, though, they don't have as big a stockpile, so they would probably instead seek to use their far more sophisticated air force. The Iranian air force is not very capable in terms of the aircraft that they operate, whereas in Israel they have the F-35, they have very high-end other jets as well, like the F-16, and you could well imagine that the pilots are fully trained and prepared to launch a sortie against Iran, which would be a massive feat because of geography, again. It's 1,000 miles away.
Deborah, isn't there another calculation involved in all of this as well? Look at the damage that the Iranian attack actually caused. Minimal injuries. The calculus when it comes to these things in anticipating the Israeli response is to look at the damage. Doesn't that make it less likely that there will be a kind of a like-for-like response?
We're in a very different era now compared to April. We don't know the full damage. I mean, the Iranians said that something like 90% of their missiles got through. I mean, that's demonstrably not the case. But Israel, as you can understand, it's a war. Information is used as a weapon. Has been very quiet on the impact of what did get through. It's quite difficult to be able to understand what they'll be thinking when you don't know the full extent of the damage they did actually incur, beyond the fact that it wasn't mass casualties. Clearly, if that had been the case, then there probably would have been a retaliation by now. The fact that they haven't immediately sought to fire back, and there were some people that thought they might do, even on the same night, would point to a moment of thinking, calculating. They're obviously talking to the Americans. Joe Biden has made very clear that he would not support an Israeli attack against any of Iran's nuclear sites. But there are lots of other targets. Iran's limited air defences will absolutely be focused around these areas. But as Israel has showed before, it can penetrate them. You're
talking there about the limits of US support for Israel. I'm wondering what the limits are, or indeed if there aren't any limits, for Iranian allies to step up and assist at times like this.
I can't imagine China getting involved for a start. As for Russia, its air defences are heavily used up defending its own skies from increased Ukrainian attacks. Probably doesn't have a huge amount of capacity to be able to gift the Iranians, even if it wanted to. The Iranians have been desperately asking for Russian jets, and that's been very slow in the coming, which is, again, a weakness for Iran, its air force.
What of the tempo of the conflict elsewhere? Because, of course, Israel is fighting on a number of fronts right now. Is Gaza done? What about the Houthis in Yemen? Are we seeing action on those fronts as well?
Well, obviously, the massive effort is in Lebanon against Hezbollah. And then ever since then, there's been increased mobilisation of Israeli troops in the area. There has been a widening in terms of the number and the types of units that are being pushed into southern Lebanon. Israel has said very clearly that its operation is localised and limited and targeted, saying that they are just intent on pushing Hezbollah back from the border beyond the Litani River to prevent them from firing into northern Israel. However, of course, as you're seeing, they're continuing to hit targets in Beirut from the air, taking out leadership figures, but obviously causing such harm and fear for civilians on the ground. They've just conducted a couple of days ago this long-range airstrike against the Houthis in Yemen because there have been missiles launched from Yemen towards Israel in the last few weeks. And as well, they are still conducting operations in Hamas. That operation in Gaza against Hamas, that operation has not ended. They've been announcing various successes in terms of taking out leadership. but clearly they haven't got their hostages back, which is something that really underlines all of the thinking from the Israeli side. They suffered this huge blow back, a devastating attack back on the 7th of October. And everything that you've seen since then is all about Israel trying to re-establish security around its borders, rescue its hostages, and also restore deterrence in a region where Israel is surrounded by countries and militias that want to do it harm.
Deborah Haynes and team, stay safe. Thanks again. Our thanks to Deborah and the team. But that is your lot for this edition of The Daily. Tomorrow, we are once again handing over the reins to our team in the United States. So much happening there ahead of the November election. So certainly well worth tuning in. For my part, I'll see you next week.